Rand Paul is torching Republicans for being so ready, willing, and able to vote for a absolutely massive debt ceiling increase while claiming to be fiscally conservative and cutting costs through Doge. But ultimately, none of that has been seen to come to fruition in American pocketbooks and in the budget. And now what we're seeing is that conservatives are seemingly going back on their word of wanting to reduce government spending and reduce government waste. Let's go ahead over here to Mediaite. Rand Paul torches fellow Republicans for falling over themselves to vote for the largest debt increase ever. Rand Paul slammed his fellow Republicans over a plan to increase the debt ceiling by $5 trillion on Fox Business Thursday. Let's go ahead and listen to what Rand Paul has to say here.
A term, you did it in December of that year. I mean, now you're trying to get to this July 4th deadline because of the X date, because of the fact that you've got to raise the debt ceiling.
Right. And I supported the tax cuts in 2017. I still support the tax cuts. I support making them permanent. I support cutting as much spending as we could get consensus on. I will even accept compromise on how much spending cuts we can get, but I'm not voting to add $5 trillion to the deficit or to the debt ceiling. Conservatives have never voted for that, and now conservatives are lining up and falling all over themselves to vote for the largest debt ceiling increase in all of history. So all the discussion over $2 trillion, $1.5 trillion, it's hard to get your mind around that. But the bottom line is when you add it all up, they're raising the debt ceiling $5 trillion. So they aren't going to reform our spending. And this is what's going to be so disappointing to the American public when they find out that all that Doge was doing, which was so good and I compliment and support, never got translated in because no one had the wherewithal and the guts to say, let's don't raise the debt ceiling that much. Let's raise it a small amount. I put forward about a month ago, let's raise the debt ceiling 3 months worth, which is $500 billion for 3 months. And I got a handful of votes. I got 3 votes. But I would do it every 3 months. I'd have a debt ceiling vote and use that as the leverage to say, what have you done for me now? What have you done for reducing spending in the last 3 months? I'll give you more only if you give me more reforms every time I vote to raise the debt ceiling. That's the only way I would vote to raise the debt ceiling.
Well, I mean, it sounds like if you're a no vote and you've got a couple colleagues that are a no vote, then you can't get this bill done by July 4th.
Or we could negotiate. The White House could say, we're not going to raise it $5 trillion. We'll do that in a separate vote. We'll let the Democrats and the big government Republicans who vote for all the spending, they get to vote for the debt ceiling increase. That's the way it's always been. Conservatives oppose the spending, oppose raising the debt ceiling. The Democrats who vote for all the spending and the big government Republicans who join them on many of the bills, they get to vote to raise the debt ceiling and the rest of us don't. But once we're gone, if all the conservatives support this, there is no conservative voice. There is no high moral ground for any conservative to say, oh, I oppose the debt. And they're going to say, yeah, you raised it $5 trillion. You know, you're no better than the Democrats, and that will stick. So there has to be some conservative movement left in the country that says enough's enough. No matter what party's in power, we can't keep spending $2 trillion more than we take in every year.
Wow. So you hear him say there has to be some sort of conservative movement in this country that is actually for conservatism. That ship has sailed, Rand Paul. That ship has sailed. The Republican Party is once again saying one thing to the voters in the campaign, saying, pretending that lowering government spending is actually a priority and a prerogative of their party. But when it comes to the rubber hitting the road, they are not about what they campaign on. We see that time and time again on issue after issue after issue. And my answer to Rand Paul here is that, unfortunately, there does not appear to be a conservative movement in this country that is actually for making the government smaller and making the government spend less. It's all just a bunch of crap, right? they point the fingers at the Democrats when the Democrats vote to raise the debt ceiling, and like to accuse the Democrats of wasteful spending and having the government be too big and too much of a factor in people's lives. But again, Rand Paul laid it out here. You have the entire Republican Party that seems like they are ready, willing, and able to go along with any debt ceiling increase that Donald Trump is supportive of. It seems like there could be a few deflections, like Rand Paul was mentioning, but we'll see. We'll see if the debt ceiling is going to be raised by July 4th. And this goes to what Trump is saying that Doge is accomplishing is a total smokescreen for Trump being able to dismantle different federal agencies that he sees as not going along with his goal of centralizing power around the executive branch. And really any sort of agency or spending that helps people or makes this country a little bit easier of a place to live in, and gives people dignity and pride, that spending is cut under the guise of, oh, we're just wanting to reduce waste. But those savings, which have not really added up to all that much from Doge, are completely, any savings, any benefit that program could have is being completely overshadowed by stuff like this. The Republicans not following any sort of through line of fiscal conservatism, but rather being fiscally conservative when it benefits them, and then voting for massive debt ceiling increases when it benefits them. So, you got these Republicans, they don't have any morals. They're constantly talking out of both sides of their mouth. And it's not like there's not Democrats that do that too. I'm aware of that. But the Democratic Party, the reason it's really all we have left in this country is because it's the only party that has any sort of overarching ideological structure that members of the Democratic Party ought to follow if they are to have political success. Whereas the Republicans, it seems that, their policy positions and what they think about and what they feel about any particular bill changes on a daily basis. And what you end up with is them campaigning on one thing, and then they get in office and whoop, it goes right out the window, right out the window, what they were campaigning on. And it's a shame that the American people voted this back in, that the American people were duped. And it's going to take, unfortunately, a lot of pain from now until the next election for people to, I think, realize their mistake and realize that they have once again been duped by nice talking points that the Republicans have during their campaigns. But when the rubber hits the road, their positions change on a daily basis with whichever direction the MAGA wind is blowing in that day. That's all I got for you guys in this one. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.